There we go. Now it should be working. Hello. Sorry about that. Now it's working. My camera was all messed up. That should be good now. Mike should be good now. There we go. Sorry, everybody. You should be hearing me now. Okay. Welcome to week 3. Glad to be here. Glad to see everybody. Hopefully you're having a good start to your week. I guess it's not even a start anymore. We're the middle of the week. You guys are Thursday morning there, so you're almost to the end of your week. But with that being said, we've got some stuff to get into today. We are going to get into some more Photoshop stuff today. We are going to design some characters and put them in some different compositions, which I think will be a good time. And I have some slides that I want to go over with you. I want to talk about color today, color and size and emphasis. Those are the things I want to talk about today, especially since we're designing some characters and I'm going to have you do some simple coloring and simple shading. So yeah, we'll jump into that and get in there. As far as housekeeping stuff goes for this week, I have several assignments now that I need to grade for you guys. So I need to spend some time this weekend and get after some grades for you. So you should, by next week, you should have all of your stuff graded that you've turned in so far. So I've just been a little bit behind, but that should be getting graded soon. Hopefully you're all doing well. I had a long day today. I've been playing tons of the new Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which has been awesome for me as a Final Fantasy VII kid. If I didn't say it in our first class, that's my favorite game of all time. If you can see behind me, I've got a little shelf of all my Final Fantasy VII stuff. It's this one right here. But yeah, Final Fantasy VII is my favorite, and Rebirth has been awesome. So Let's jump into the assignment for this week so I can give you a little bit of a description there. So this is being silly now. I have to re-add myself to this view. There we go. Okay, cool. So this week, like I said, we're working on design number 2. So we are going to focus on a couple things. The idea this week is that we're focusing on balance and composition. So your assignment is going to kind of focus in on that. I also want to talk, excuse me, a little bit about color. So like I said, I have some slides I want to go through, but the assignment is that you're going to be creating your own simple characters, right? Remember, I mean simple, okay? I don't mean a Dark Souls boss. I don't mean something completely elaborate and insane. I want you to keep them simple. We drew the simple characters last week in the different styles. I still want you to keep that same mindset, but you're going to create your own character this time. Like we were drawing someone else's IP. Now we're going to design our own, right? So you're going to design your own simple character and you're going to drop them in 4 different compositions, okay? And those 4 compositions are going to reflect these 4 different types of symmetry. And we're going to talk about those today. And I don't know if I have... Do I have my slides for symmetry? Let me double check here. And maybe we'll skip color for today. Let me double check. Because I do want to talk about symmetry. If I don't have the slides, we'll just go over the notes and it will be fine. Because I can just do like a whiteboard. But let me see. Excuse me. I'm a little tired today. I thought I had slides for that. Maybe I don't have slides for that. Which is okay. It's not the end of the world. You know what? We'll scrap the slides. It'll be fine. That's fine. We'll just talk about, I have a page of notes I'll go through and we'll kind of talk in real time. I have a whiteboard. I can just use Photoshop as a whiteboard and we'll talk about stuff. Okay. So, yeah, any questions about the assignment? It's pretty straightforward. You're going to draw your character, drop them into 4 different compositions. These compositions are going to reflect these types of balances. So we have symmetrical, asymmetrical, radial, and mosaic. And those will make more sense in just a minute once we talk about that. So I'm going to scrap the color notes. We'll save those for next class. And we'll just chat about... We will just chat about balance today. So, okay, let's go into our notes. So if you have any questions on the assignment, throw them in there. Like I said, it should be fairly straightforward. And I'm going to walk you through designing a character. I'm going to design one on stream for you here. And so I can help walk you through that. And we'll even drop them in a composition as well. And then I'll let you guys kind of roll with it. But let's jump into the notes because I want to chat about these for a minute. So let's talk about our shape and balance notes. I swear I had shape and balance slides. That really bothers me. Do I not have slides for that? Double check. Perspective, texture, color, size. I guess I don't. I'll have to make some. That's all right. We can do it this way. It'll be just fine. Okay, so I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna open up Photoshop and we're gonna roll through these like this, and that will be just fine. So let's go here and go like this. Okay. This will give me the chance to kind of talk to you in real time and draw in real time, which is just fine. I don't mind doing that. Okay, cool. Let's turn this up a little bit. Perfect. Okay. Let me kind of move my face out of the way if I'm going to do it like this. And I will just remember that I am over here like this. Okay, cool. So let's talk about shape and balance a little bit, right? That's, like I said, our assignment is going to be here. For the future assignments, can we use a free version of ZBrush? My student promotion code does not work. I believe ZBrush Core will work for everything that we want to do. I'm pretty sure. So yes, I think the free version is okay. There are some things that Core can't do, but I don't think we're going to get into any of that. I think we're just going to get into sculpting and painting, and I believe Core can do that. So yes, it should be fine. Okay. So talking about shape, right? When we're talking about shape, we're talking about the forms that make up our world, right? All visible objects have shape, okay? You know these shapes. You know, you have standard shapes that we see all the time. You know, things like this. Shapes that we see every single day. You know, I'm drawing really rough, bad shapes right now. Things that you are used to seeing in your everyday life. You know, objects and shapes are everywhere, right? They're things that we see the world with. Okay? Everything has shape. So, when we're talking about shape, we're talking about a distinct area that is visually separated from the picture plane, specifically in the art realm, right? It's something that's separated from the picture plane and the other elements of the design, right? All shapes have boundaries and edges. We kind of talked about that last week. We talked about contoured edges and contoured lines, right? Those same things apply when we're drawing shapes, okay? All shapes are bounded by lines. They can be actual or implied. We talked about that too, right? Here's an actual triangle, right? Now, if I draw a bunch of boxes, right? These boxes I drew, they could all be shaded in, roughly shaded, right? But there's still a square here, right? Missing the umbrella. Yeah. So, there could be, this is technically a square as well, right? So negative space can create shapes as well, okay? So shapes like lines can be implied, like I'm saying, right? They can be implied shapes through negative space or through closed lines or not closed lines, things that look like shapes, right? What happens with our brain, and just to get into science a little bit, your brain wants things to make sense, right? So if your brain has seen a triangle 100 million times, right? Then the next time you see something that looks something like that, right? Even if it's not close, your brain's going to look at this and go, oh, that's kind of close to the thing I've seen a lot of the time. So I'm going to try to make you understand that that's the same shape, right? Something similar here, right? And then you go like this. That's not the same thing, but it's close. And our brain is going to try to fill that in, right? That's called closure. And that's something that your brain does without you even trying to do it. So it helps in the art space because we can do a lot of trickery and use these lines to create different shapes and use them to our benefit. Also talking about shape, we have two different types of categories, right? We have the ones that you've seen your entire life, which we were already talking about. You've got your triangles, your squares, your circles, your rhombuses, your, ovals. That's not a perfect circle, but yeah, your ovals, your pentagons, all these different shapes that you've seen your entire life, right? These are what are called mathematical shapes, okay? Okay, mathematical shapes. Or geometric is the other term that you'll hear for them, okay? So geometric shapes. Okay, you'll hear that term quite a lot. Your triangles, your squares, your rectangles, right? Parallelograms, all these different shapes that you're used to seeing, that you've seen for a long time. And I'm drawing on the background. That's okay. Okay. Then you have organic shapes, which tend to be, other shapes, things that don't quite line up with what a traditional geometric shape is, right? Different types of shapes all over the place. I could go crazy with these, right? Organic shapes are shapes that are usually rounded, irregular, and free-flowing, right? They tend to be more visually complex, and they usually have a dynamic feel, right? You've got shapes that look, something like this, like a seashell. You've got clouds, things like this, right? Things that are a little more free-flowing, that don't align with what we understand to be geometric, okay? The geometric ones are the ones that are mathematically defined and usually symmetrical. Okay, so that's all I've got to say about shape right now, but we'll get into that. We're going to use some shapes today when we're designing our characters, okay? So just to give you a little bit more insight on shape. The next thing I want to jump into here is balance, okay? Balance is an element of design that helps you understand why a composition feels the way it does, right? Balance is understanding how to lay things on a sheet or on a canvas in order to invoke a certain emotion, or in order to understand how to use your positive and negative spaces on your sheet, right? Now, when you're balancing a composition, there's a few things that kind of go into that, right? You have visual weight, which means an object that has the most visual weight is usually the thing on the page that attracts the eye of the viewer the most, right? So if this is my composition here on the left, and I have, a bunch of circles that are all the same size, and I'm drawing them all like this, right? And then all of a sudden I have a big, huge square, right? This object here has the most visual weight, right? Because it's attracting your eye the most. It's the biggest thing. It's gathering. It's commanding your attention, right? Now, it doesn't always have to be size that can cause visual weight, right? Visual weight can be controlled through a number of different things, right? We could do that same exercise here. We do this with all these square circles, draw them all similar sizes, and then all of a sudden I do one like this. And then I go back to drawing them like this. Which one has the most visual weight? The red one, right? Because this is different. It's commanding your attention. So just size does not have to be the only reason something has visual weight, right? It's just how much anything on the page attracts the eye of the viewer, okay? Now, the next thing that we can kind of talk about too when you're laying up these canvases and your compositions is visual direction, right? So you have your visual weight, which is how much something is being attracted, or how much something on the page is attracting the eye of your viewer, right? That's your visual weight. Then you have your visual direction, right? And that is the perceived direction of visual force, right? So it's the direction that you would think about if an element should be moving if it were given a chance, right? So if you were to enact the forces of gravity on this, which way would that thing move, right? If it were given a chance to move, where would it go? So if we have a flat bar that we're drawing on, right? Something that represents the ground, and I have a lot of things kind of sitting on the ground, right? These things don't have a lot of visual direction, right? If they were given a chance to move, they're not really going to go anywhere, right? Gravity's going to pull them down. So they're going to kind of stay where they're at, right? Now, if I have the ground here and we change this up a little bit, then I draw something up here and I draw something down here. This now has a visual direction like this, right? This could be perceived as having the opportunity to fall down, right? Because I drew it up here. I've drawn something stable with a visual direction that looks like it's not going anywhere. This looks like it has the opportunity to fall, right? Could do something similar like this. Let's say our line ends up looking more like this on the page. And then I draw a ball here. Now my visual direction is going this way, right? Because if it were given a chance, this thing's gonna roll down the page, right? So visual weight and visual direction, they're important when you're trying to lay up your overall composition. Where you're placing things on the sheet has an impact, right? So balance, when we're talking about it, when a piece is balanced and it feels comfortable, right? When something is balanced, it feels good. It feels aesthetically pleasing, and it's preferable by the end user more often than not. Now, there is an opposing element to this too, right? You can use unbalance to your advantage, right? You can give a certain emotion through that unbalance, right? If you look at a lot of the design of horror game bosses and mechanics and things, right? I always try to tie what I'm talking about back into games because that's why you're all here. If you look at the design of characters in something like a Dark Souls or something like a Resident Evil, they use a lot of this unbalance and asymmetry to create this weird feeling of dysmorphia and feeling uncomfortable, right? Bosses will have big arms that don't look like they would normally fit in the human anatomy, or they have their face askewed in a way where the balance is off and it looks gross and weird and doesn't feel good. But they do that on purpose. If those characters were perfectly clean cut, balanced, and symmetrical, you wouldn't be scared of it, right? There's a reason why you do that, okay? So, moving on, let's talk about how and what types of balance you can use and what types of balance there even are, right? So we have symmetrical balance. Like if we take our sheet and we view this almost as a scale, right? We take our canvas, and this kind of ends up being a visual scale, right? If we were to use it, here's our little scale, okay? right? If we cut a line right down the middle of the sheet, something like this, symmetrical balance means that we have equal visual weight and equal visual direction on each side, right? So if I draw something over here that looks like this, I'm going to draw something over here that looks like this. It doesn't need to be perfectly symmetrical, right? I could have it, you know, sitting like this. This is balanced, right? I have equal visual weight. If I fill this side with a lot of little elements, then I need to fill this side with a lot of little elements. Okay? It's balancing out that scale, right? That's different than symmetry. We're talking completely different from symmetry. Balance only matters in visual weight, right? And visual direction. Okay? It doesn't matter if it's symmetrical or asymmetrical, okay? It's just the amount of elements and the amount of things on each side, right? So, asymmetrical balance is when it's unbalanced, right? We're loading this side of our scale up with lots of elements, lots of parts of our design. And this one, maybe not so much. Not so balanced anymore, right? But that's okay. Asymmetrical balance is unequal visual weight on each side. And one major element or focal point is balanced by a combination of lesser elements, right? So asymmetrical balance is a lot more modern and dynamic. It gets used a lot more now because people like that feeling of asymmetry. It's a little more energetic. This is a lot more visually interesting to me than the last thing I drew, right? It creates a lot more visual variety too. We create, you know, these elements and things that are interesting to look at. Okay. So this is our asymmetrical balance. Then we have what's called radial balance. I am going to delete our little scale here because now we need to focus on the middle of the page. Radial balance is when everything operates around the center of an image, right? We're drawing these elements and they all kind of operate around the center of this center point right here, right? Everything's sort of balancing around this. This is our radial balance, right? All of our elements operate around that center point and draw attention back in to the center, right? And then we have what's called mosaic balance, okay? Radial balance is pretty self-explanatory. You just want all of those elements to draw your eye back to that center point from whichever direction you're laying those up on the canvas, right? Then you have what's called mosaic balance. Mosaic balance is the balance in the chaos, right? If I were to draw something in a grid, right? I'm doing something like this. Okay, I've drawn a grid. If I draw objects on this grid, right? This is not mosaic balance, right? These objects are laid up on this grid. That's not what mosaic balance is, right? Mosaic balance results from being balanced chaos, okay? Where there's no distinct focal point, there's no hierarchy, there's no rhyme or reason to whatever anything's happened on the page. But for some reason, it has balance, okay? For example, I have all these little shapes. There's no rhyme or reason to this. I could have lots of, you know, things like this all over the page. There's no balance. There's no rhyme or reason to where these things are going. They're just being placed on the screen. But at the end of the day, this starts to end up feeling balanced because there's so much chaos going on that almost feels like it's meant to be like that, right? So that's where that mosaic balance comes in, okay? And that's the one that I think people struggle with the most is they say they're doing mosaic balance, but in reality, they just drew a bunch of squares in a grid, and that's not mosaic balance, right? It needs to be the balance of the chaos. There's no rhyme or reason, but there's enough of it and enough happening that you get distracted and your brain starts to go, oh yeah, I like this. There's a lot happening here and I don't need to focus on any one thing. And that to me feels balanced, right? So those are your types of balance. Okay. Now, the composition that you're going to be working on is based off of these 4 types of balance. Okay. There are some things that you can do to help you achieve that balance, right? And those are, understanding what that balance technically is. And then there's the idea of using some symmetry in these compositions to help with that. Symmetry and balance are not one and the same. We can have something that's, visually equal weight on each side, but it does not need to be symmetrical, right? Because technically that would end up looking something like this if I drew it symmetrically perfect. Okay. So reflection symmetry is the one that you all understand. It's the one that you've known forever, right? It's when you draw something on one side, it completely draws it on the other side, right? You have perfect symmetry over one axis, right? Right? We're doing something like this. You've got, your perfect radial symmetry. Okay. So you start creating these things and it reflects over that one point. That's reflection symmetry. Then you have rotational symmetry, which ends up looking something like this, where you've got everything kind of floating around one center point, right? This is radial symmetry, where everything rotates around a common center. It's kind of the idea that happens in these mandala type effect images that you can draw and create. That is rotational symmetry, okay? Then you have the next thing that's called translational symmetry, which is symmetry achieved through repeating elements. So drawing a bunch of elements on the screen that are all the same size and kind of equal. This is translational symmetry, right? They're objects in a row or repeating elements in space, okay? Then you have what's called asymmetry. And asymmetry is interesting because it creates these complex relationships and hierarchies between objects. Feels a little bit more active and less predictable, right? You can have asymmetry. Something may feel the same. For example, if I draw something here, maybe there is a mixture of symmetry and asymmetry here. We're drawing a character's face, right? Their mouth, everything is the same. And then on one side, it happens all the time. Let's see. So no more symmetry. Let's turn this off. Maybe they have a fang on one side. Maybe they have, their eye gouged out on this side. So they only have this eye to work with now. Right? Maybe this one ear is pierced, So there's some dynamic stuff that can happen with asymmetry that can kind of help you feel a little bit closer and things start to feel a little more dynamic and active in your designs, right? So that is asymmetry. Now I want to talk to you about one more thing here because we're going to be designing characters today. And I like to always get a little kind of sciencey in here. But I want to talk about the idea of contour bias. Okay. Contour bias is a tendency of our human brain to favor contours, which I mean smooth lines. Our brains like smooth lines over sharp angles, right? When presented with sharp angles or points, there was a study done a long time ago. I don't know where, but I know there was a lot of studies run about it. When we're presented with a sharp angle or a point, our amygdala is activated, right? Which is the part of your brain that governs fear. So this is supposed to be a subconscious mechanism for detecting threats, right? So our brain goes, that's pointy, that could hurt me. I don't like that, right? So the degree of amygdala activation is, directly proportional to the angularity of neutral objects, right? So like this, something that's angular, this is technically angular, but your brain is not going to react to something that's like point and spiky like that, right? So it's just a degree of that angle. So what happens with that is pointy and highly angular objects show stronger activations in the region of brain related to associative processing, which means they demand more attention because your body is afraid of them, right? So it's going to cause you to have more, have more attention on that object. And then with that, you become, more aware of it, which means it's more memorable. Your body's going to retain that information so that the next time, I don't want to touch that thing, it hurt me, right? Or I don't want to be around that sharp thing, it could potentially harm me, okay? Now, smooth contoured lines are going to give a more favorable first impression, right? Because our brain likes those. They're smooth. There's no danger there. Then, the pointy angular shapes demand a lot of attention and create discomfort. So when you have a mixture of those in a design, it really helps pull it all together, right? You see it in a lot of designs, right? Lots of contours, and then there will be an angle, like a spike or something in a design to kind of cause some attention and bring attention in, right? You see it a lot in anime characters. You see it a lot in all types of characters, right? When you're creating these little characters and designing them, it helps to create points of interest that your end user will remember, right? All of you can sit down and think and picture your favorite video game character right now and think of all the different parts of their design and go, oh yeah, there's probably some angles. There's probably some smooth parts to that character, right? I can do it with mine. My favorite character is Cloud from Final Fantasy VII. Obviously, he's got his round, smooth shoulder plates, his big boots. Then he's got that pointy hair and the big pointy sword, right? So it happens in a lot of different design and it works well. So think about that as you're going through and designing your characters today, okay? With that being said, I want to jump in. That's all I have to say about that right now. And those notes are posted. You can get to them in our Canvas page if you want to refer back to them. But yeah, I'm done talking about that stuff right now. What I'd like to do now is get in and start designing some of this character, right? And I want to walk you a little bit through my process and kind of what I like to do when I start designing these characters. Oftentimes when I'm doing them for the class, it's kind of off the cuff. Like I'm just pulling stuff out of nowhere and being like, I want to draw this today, right? Today I want to draw a little swordsman character, maybe a little traveler kind of thing mixed in. So I want to find some references, right? I want to find like backpacks. I want to find like small, interesting characters to look at. So a lot of the times I'm going in here and looking up references, right? So I'm going like traveler character. And then I'm looking and seeing kind of what people do when they're designing these types of characters, right? To me, I think of it as like something along the lines of this, right? I like these elements. I like the backpack. I like the cloak. I like things like that. So I'm pulling these in, and oftentimes what I'll do is I'll just pull up a sheet of references. I'll jump through and create a bunch of different windows and be like, yeah, I like what's happening here. I like what I'm seeing. And then I start just pulling in a lot of different elements to reference. What do I want this character to look like? Do I want him to have a face? Do I want him to have a hood? So I'm going through all these different things, right? And I start pulling in a bunch of different references for me to kind of go off of. I love this design. These are from Octopath Traveler. I'm not going to draw something this complex today. I'm going to try to keep it a little more simple. But yeah, I'm start pulling in some of these references and kind of jumping off the design. And then I jump in and just kind of start sketching and laying it up, right? So I can go like simple traveler. see if I can find anything that I like. You know, I like this idea. You know, simple swordsman too, I could look at. Or like stylized. Or stylized swordsman 2D. You know, things like this really help me when I want to start designing characters. So I find some things I like, I find some things that maybe I don't like, you know, and then I get in there and just kind of play around. So I found a couple things. I think I have sort of an idea of what I want to do here. And I'm just going to kind of roll with it too. What kind of comes out onto the paper, we'll roll with it and kind of go with the design. So what I usually like to do is drop in my canvas, right? Make sure I have a nice high quality canvas, high pixel count so that I can design something nice. And then I'm going to sketch. I'm going to create my layer. I'm going to rename it by double clicking it right there. And I'm just going to call this my sketch layer, right? And I did this when I was drawing the other Pokemon too. This time I'm not going off of, you know, a reference that I was drawing. This time it's just kind of coming from me. And then I'm going to start kind of drawing some lines here and just kind of start sketching, you know, what I think I want this character to look like, right? I want, you know, something here. I want to keep it simple. I'm reminding myself to keep things simple. So I kind of want a simple, kind of cute head shape. And I like oftentimes will do this and then I'll kind of undo and kind of reapproach. Like if I don't like where I'm going, I like certain lines that are happening here. I'm also going to try to keep him in 3/4 view. So I kind of like what's happening here. And then I always kind of try to do something like this where I draw my construction lines, see if I like how that lays up. You know, I don't love that right now. I want, and then, you know, then it starts coming into like, okay, well, how does this design work? Maybe I need to reapproach this a little bit. Yeah, I'm gonna do something like this. We do like a cool. Yeah, okay. So I start sketching like this. I kind of start nailing in some of these finer details, deciding where things lay out here. I like this, the head shape's getting there. I'll tend to sketch. I'm going to turn off my smoothing just because smoothing is hard when you're trying to sketch, especially if you're trying to get like specific lines here. And I don't mind if it's messy because I'm going to come back through and do a better layer. Then I need to kind of think of the body. Like I said, I'm trying to keep this a little more simple. My idea is that this traveler character kind of, you know, something like this maybe. I want him to have kind of this big backpack. Like this idea of the big pack. And then I want a big sword kind of sticking out of it. So I'm just kind of sketching, figuring this out. Something like this. Which means this arm is going to be here. He's going to have this arm kind of here. And then, you know, I can come through with another pen and just kind of decide where I want certain elements to lay out. Like maybe I want him holding a map or something. Here's his, you know, waist. The legs are going to come down. This is kind of the frame that I'm looking at. His head sitting in here. Feet kind of in here somewhere. Right? And I know that I want certain elements here. I know that I want that big bag. And I know that I want, you know, something, you know, kind of poking through there. Okay. So here I have this really rough sketch, right? Super rough. But now I can start kind of working from this point and designing something a little bit more fleshed out. This is pretty quick, but I like where I'm going, right? This sometimes for me would be another iteration. Then I'd go here, change my opacity way down. Then I'd sketch again over the top and be like, okay, let's really kind of lay this out. So then I'm going to come in with a lighter gray and maybe start nailing in some of these details a little bit more. Like, okay, how do I want this to actually work? And this is where I start bumping on my smoothing. I kind of nail in some of these design elements a little bit more. I get a little bit tighter with my brush. And then I start kind of working out exactly how that works, right? I can see that that's where his arms ends up, right? So then maybe I need to design if he's wearing, you know, maybe he's got some sort of shirt here that comes down, maybe into some sort of glove, you know, and this is where I can get a little bit more creative too. Just how busy do I want to get with this design, right? Maybe he has a big giant belt buckle that wraps around. The other thing too is I want to make sure I'm in that 3/4 view the right way. So like that belt buckle is going to sit somewhere in here, kind of wrap if it's a big one. Just kind of laying things out. Then that belt's going to wrap back here. And how does that affect his little shirt? And maybe his kind of cloak that comes through. Something like that. And maybe he's got some leg wraps or something. He's also got the big straps from his bag that are coming through here. I also want to make sure I'm conscious of kind of where that ends up, which those kind of are going to look a little bit more like this. You're not really going to see that very well. Maybe just a little bit of like that part of the strap that you'll kind of see, depending. There's kind of the split of his shirt. Then I can kind of start laying some of this up. You know, I want this cool sword sitting back here. How do I want this to design to work? So I'm still kind of in this sketchy design, but you can see I'm getting a little bit tighter with these lines and kind of designing where things are at now, right? Maybe this line does something like this instead. But I'm getting a little bit more deliberate with what I'm drawing here. Maybe that flap goes down. This bedroll is going back underneath. Maybe there's like a side pocket or flap. Right? So I'm getting a little bit more deliberate with this design now. Okay. Then I can kind of start deciding how I want this area to look. And this is where I turn my smoothing back off, because like I said, if I'm sketching, I want a little bit more leeway here. Maybe I want to pull his eyes down a little bit. Maybe this isn't the final design, but you know, you can always modify stuff after the fact. It always depends on what side of the head you're looking at too. Like, so maybe this is a rough layout of the face. So we can get a little bit more deliberate with some of this. And I'm not totally sure what I'm doing here. This might change a little bit. Kind of like the idea of these big swoopy bangs in his face. Kind of all coming from here. Something kind of hanging. And then maybe we'll get a little scruffy and he'll have a beard to go with it. I don't know. We'll see. But now that I kind of have a better idea of what I want to do here, now I can come back and start kind of drawing over the top. I need this other arm to kind of do something here. And I know this is going to be something in here, you know. I'm not totally positive, but end up looking something like that. And then this leg, you know. Okay. So, same thing here. We're going to pull this down way far. And then usually I can turn off that one. Sometimes I'll even come to this one and you really lower the opacity on that one. Because I do like to see it. I like to see kind of where I came from. Then I have another layer. And then this is going to be, you know, probably the final layer. Or close to it, right? Where I'm going to come through and really try to decide like where lines are now, right? Like if this really is the hair I'm gonna do, where does this go? So then this is where my smoothing comes into play again. And I've got, you know, maybe this is a little bit smaller line. And you probably don't even see the ear from that side in all reality. the hair could come through for sure. And I didn't really decide on the beard, so maybe we do the beard. And maybe it looks a little bit more like this off of there. And I can just do kind of one. Kind of like that. So working through this, right? Now we can go kind of to the next area. The next thing that's probably worth kind of getting laid in is the arms here. You know, we drew those kind of sleeves on the shirt. Making sure this all kind of lays up nice. Got our arm. That flows into this kind of glove that we drew. So, trying to keep it simple. Trying to piece out where all those things are that we drew. Something like this. Okay. Then we've got the other arm over here, which is its own sort of unique thing. Kind of how you see that is a little bit unique. So you're gonna have that backpack strap kind of doing something like this. We'll figure that out in a second. Let's come in here and kind of flesh out some of this other stuff. Going to be a big belt buckle, which is going to have a big kind of strap hanging down. Obviously that's going to go like this and kind of die over here. It's going to wrap like this. Let's get these straps in. So this strap is going over his shoulder. It's going to come through like this. It's wrapping under his shoulder. It's tying back in. Like I said, this might need one more round of cleanup, but we're getting in here, getting this guy designed. I'm just trying to take some of the guesswork out of here a little bit, if I can. Clean up this shirt design. It's coming down. Why is my brush erasing? What is happening? There we go. There we go. Okay, that's a little better. We're getting there. This is going to come down and out. That's just going to peek through a little bit. Here's our leg. Which we're just kind of faking a little bit. Which we'll get back to. And this is going to be the other strap. Still see a little bit of this. I'm just gonna make this a lot easier, I think. Just for time's sake, because I don't want to go too crazy with this. I know we have plenty of time, but I don't want to waste a bunch of time on this. That strap's gonna come here. This arm's just gonna be out. Which feels weird. Trying to decide how that works. Yeah, you kind of don't. Kind of do see it. Like this chest is actually gonna go like this, and then depending if you actually see the strap or not is really dependent on how the arm is drawn. It's like it's gonna end up doing something more like this, and then the arm's gonna go underneath it. Okay, that makes more sense. So here's his shirt. Actually, it's gonna be up here a little bit more. There's his arm. It's coming down into this glove. Going to see the other side of his hand. Except for I want him to be holding something. Maybe we'll do a torch or something. Let's fix this up a little bit. This is going to require one more pass here, but that's okay. So that's fine. He's going to have a little bit of an arm wrap on this arm. Some leg wraps. Okay. I like this design and where it's going to. I just want a little bit more definition through here. Something like that. This belt's gonna come through here. What? Okay, let's see. So we're getting closer. I am actually happy with where this is kind of going. Stoked about this. Okay. Our little character is getting some life. So this feels good. This needs to just let's go like this for this. Okay. So to do that, draw straight lines in Photoshop. If you tap and then hold shift and tap again, it will create a straight line. Yeah, you can make it a simpler character. I've kind of made this guy more complicated than he needs to be, for sure. You can definitely make it a little bit more simple than this character is. I've definitely made him a little more complicated, for sure. I ended up doing it with my last one too that I did for demo. Okay, let's finalize this character. Let's just get him wrapped up. Yeah, you can use the same character in the different backgrounds. Yes. going to, so I put that on a different layer because now I can just do this and erase everywhere that sword is not going to show up, just to make sure that those lines kind of make sense where they're at. And then I can just do my, yeah, you could give them some minor changes if you want, for sure. That's fine. Okay. Let's do one more pass on this guy, and then we can maybe do some color. And we'll try to keep the color simple. So let's turn this down. We're going to merge these layers. You can right click and hit merge layer right here. So now those should be all on one. And I'm going to turn these down. Again, now I'm going to turn off my other ones so that I'm not getting distracted. And then we'll do our final pass. And this guy, yeah, was a lot more complicated than I probably meant him to be, but I get carried away. So we'll just try to get him done quickly here. Does kind of look like you, huh, bro? making an executive decision and changing the design a little bit right here. Go like this. That's tough. I'm gonna. Okay, let's get these in here. All right, that's feeling better for this pass for sure. Let's, oops, cleared my whole screen. There we go. Too thick. Okay. We are getting a lot closer. And I might rush a little bit here just to get this done. Okay, there's that. Here's this. Okay. Couple more lines here. I'm going fast. We are going to get a little more foreshortened here. I think I'm going to try to. Okay. All right, let's jump into the last couple pieces here. This guy definitely got a lot more complicated than I wanted him to be. Got a little bit ahead of myself, which is okay, but I do it every time too. It's pretty funny. I tell myself before I start, I'm like, we're not gonna do something super complicated today. Granted, he's not insane, he's just detailed, right? More detailed than I expect any of you to do for the assignment. So if you want to get this crazy, you definitely can, but you don't need to. And I would definitely spend more time cleaning this up, but for time's sake, I'm just going to kind of leave him at this level. This hand and stuff, I would definitely clean up more just because of me like fixing the angle and the direction of it. You know, I would definitely try to clean up a little bit more, but it's okay. Lots of little things where things are overlapping. Yeah. Yep. I will definitely show how to duplicate stuff. Let me just get these last few lines in here. I am definitely going fast. Okay. That's all right. Let's turn this one off. Oh, see, like all this is all. It's okay. I would get really nitpicky here, but I don't have time to. So let's just jump into color. We're going to talk about duplicating our layers a little bit here. You'll draw some backgrounds. I have some examples of other ones that I've done too, that we can show. So my painting process is very similar here that it would be to my other design that I did last week, like with the Pokemon. I would go through a very similar process here. Like I'm going to take this layer, drop another layer underneath it. This layer is going to be called final line. This one is going to be called color 1, you know, or base color. And then I just start going through with my color palette, you know, and I usually would go in and pick a color palette, but I kind of already have one in mind. So I'm just gonna kind of do what I knew I wanted to do here, which is just some base browns here for his hair. Kind of this grayish brown for this stuff. All of this, that one color. And like I said, this character can just be done with flat, and then you can do very simple shading if you want. I'm not super worried about shading. You can do it if you want, but this character can be done in all flats. So just cleaning up some of my edges here. Then I usually go darker for eyebrows. So I'll keep the same shade, but go a little darker. Then I'll go next one. I'll pull this underneath because I'm going to make this the flesh layer. So we'll do like a kind of a dark layer for this. Let's make sure it's a little bit more orange. So we're just doing flats. And this lives under, the flesh is going to live under all the other stuff. So we'll go here. That side I'd like to clean up a little bit more, but it's fine. I'm going to do another layer, over the top here. And this one I'm going to do, to me, this guy was like, has a little bit of magic in him or something. I don't know. So I want to do something cool with his eyes. So I'm going to go like a bluey kind of color here. And then I'm going to just do something fun with them. So I'm going to give this layer like an inner glow or an outer glow or something. just for fun. That's not working. Let's do an outer glow. Give it like a light blue. Something like that, and then we'll come through, just give him some more colors through here. This I'm gonna try to, yeah, okay, cool. I'm gonna try to paint bucket some of this if I can. See, I don't want that on everything. I don't want that color. I want more of a olive, muted olive, a little darker. Yeah. That's gonna be the shirt. I can go into my final line and just close this so that it doesn't bleed over. I can jump back to my paint bucket back in here. Then I need this color, but I'm gonna make it like a tan, desaturated kind of orangey tan sand color. For the backpack. If it'll let me fill some of this. I think I hit on the line. Yep, I did. Same thing here. I'm just going to come in really quick and close this so that I can paint that with my paint bucket. I really could clean this guy up a lot more for sure. But like I said, I'm going a little fast right now. I could definitely clean up the paint too. It's fine. Okay, the belt buckle is going to be gold. So we'll do something like that. The belt is going to be like a... Yep, and his gloves. The pants are going to be like a dark brown, maybe even close to this. Just darkened up. Maybe even tinted a little. Something like that. And the wraps are this, but they are lighter. Almost the same color as the background. That's pink. That's crazy. That's like the same color as the background. We'll darken them up. Okay. Alrighty. One more thing here. I'm gonna make the bedroll this color. We're just gonna get a little more olive with that. And the sword is going to be the same idea. And a gray. And let's do... Okay. Something like that. This guy. Okay. That is pretty well painted now. Okay. Not bad. The shoes, I'm just going to do the same color as this. There's the feet. Okay. All right. So, definitely a little longer than I wanted it to be for this, but that's okay. So here's our little character. Now, here's the thing. If we wanted to take him, we just take all of our layers that we have, right? Obviously, these are some of our sketch layers. We don't need these. We take all these layers that we have, put them in a folder. And then if you want to move him, now that he's in a folder, he can be moved, right? So if you wanted multiple of him, you just duplicate this folder, right click, duplicate, right? Duplicate group. You can call it group one copy. That doesn't matter. Now you've got multiples, right? So he could get used everywhere. Remember that you need to use Control T while you're selected on a group to move the whole group at once. So Control T on your keyboard allows you to free transform. So he could be scaled too, right? I could move him around. I could change him. That's how you move once you free transform something. So Control T on your keyboard while you're selected on the group over here on the right-hand side. You can move them around. Okay. So for example, now that you've designed your character, you could drop them into a couple different scenes, right? So with that being said, I can jump into, let's save this guy. So let's open up some of the other ones I've done. So for example here, this was the one that I did last class. Now the thing is here, there's a lot more shading happening here with this character, right? But I could say, okay, I open up, let's actually do this. Let's open up this and let's copy this group. I could say, okay, I painted this up. Let's paste our character in here. Why did that not work? So we copied that. Let's paste it in here. Where did he go? So I did the same thing here. You can kind of see how I built up these layers too, to build my background. So this would be an example of a symmetrical balance, right? Even though it's not perfectly mirrored on each side. Even though it's not perfectly mirrored on each side, it's pretty symmetrical, or it's pretty balanced on each side, right? So this would be your symmetrical balance, right? Okay. I'm trying to figure out why my paste is not working. Let's just merge this group. Then let's control C this and control V this in here. There we go. Okay. So here's our other little guy. So you could place him in a number of scenes, right? Once you get your character built out, you could place them in a number of scenes. So you build your character, drop them in a few different scenes, and then you're done. Okay. We've been going for a while, so I'm happy to link. I have a video of me going through and doing this skeleton character that I'd be happy to link to you all in the Discord, so you can see that. You saw me put together this guy, right? So there should be enough information for you to tackle the assignment. Okay. I don't want to hold you much longer because I haven't given you any breaks and we've just been kind of painting straight. So I'm going to let you guys go. If you have any questions for me, please hit me up in the Discord. And then, you know, once you're done, let me know. Okay. If you have problems in the meantime, trying to get stuff done or need questions or help with the assignment, I'm happy to answer those. Send me an email, shoot me a message in Discord. And I'll get back to you. Okay. Yeah, I'll link that video. So look for that in the Discord as well. I'll link the video of me putting this assignment together. Same thing, just painting the background so you can kind of see that as well. I just don't want to burn too much more time. So, okay. That's it for me. I had a lot of fun designing this guy. I want to clean him up. I get to be a perfectionist, and so I want to clean that up. It's a very initial first pass. But yeah, I'm happy with it. I could sit here for another hour and tidy him up, but that's okay. Yeah. Thanks everybody. And I will see you guys next week.
I was a youth. I've always been searching for the truth. But having been told so many lies, life like good music never dies. Only who you never know. Why is a man respected when he's dead? In that respect he pays for living instead. A man is a sufferer of no mean order, but dead he has an estate to the value of $1,000,000 and gold. I must die one day, you'll all hear people say, yet praying for salvation in corrupted meditation, storing up wealth, ignoring their health. But the tree is known by its fruit. There's no life in life.
they will have it. People want paradise. And they will have it. People want paradise. And they will have it. Paradise. Paradise.